Okay, let's unpack this. When we think about summer, usually, lazy days, warm sunshine comes to mind.
Right. Picnics, long evenings.
Exactly. But our sources today, and especially this incredible book, Summer World, A Season of Bounty by Bernd Heinrich, they reveal something profoundly different.
Yeah, it's not lazy at all, is it?
Not at all. Summer is actually, it seems, the most intense, urgent, and really complex time of year in nature. It's all frantic activity, hidden battles, incredible adaptations. So our mission today is kind of explore this surprising, sometimes fierce side of the season, hopefully revealing insights that might just change how you see, the world right outside your window.
It's true. Summer is far more than just sunbathing. We're going to dive deep into the biological clockwork that really orchestrates it all.
Right.
From, the cosmic origins of seasons themselves, right down to tiny insects surviving, and even where we fit into the summer world.
Our own place in it. Interesting.
Yeah. Get ready for some real aha moments, I think.
Okay, let's do it. So, starting at the very beginning, our source mentions the seasons themselves, which dictate so much life, have this really dramatic origin story.
They really do. I mean, the Earth's journey around the sun, that's the immediate cause, right? But it actually stems from what astronomers call an ancient catastrophe.
Ancient catastrophe sounds big.
It was huge. The thinking is, about 4 billion years ago, something roughly Mars size slammed into the early Earth.
Wow.
And that impact might have been what tipped Earth's axis, giving us the tilt that causes seasons, and it probably ejected all the debris that formed the moon.
Incredible. So our seasons are moon, possibly from this one giant collision.
Exactly. And then life pops up maybe 500 million years later and has basically been adjusting to summer versus winter ever since.
That is a wild origin story. Okay, so from this cosmic scale, let's bring it down to Earth. What are the first signals that nature actually reads to know summer's on its way? It can't just be the temperature rising, can it?
No, not just temperature. For most organisms, the really key signal is photoperiod.
Photoperiod.
Yeah, just the relative length of daylight versus darkness.
Okay.
So plants like alders, birches, hazels, they actually get their flower buds fully formed way back in the fall. They're just waiting, ready to pop.
Primed and ready.
Totally. And some, like red oaks, they're even forming new leaf buds in July of the previous summer.
Get out. A year ahead.
Yeah, sometimes they even break early, push out a second shoot. They're really getting a jump start.
That's amazing planning. And it's not just the plants doing this, right?
Yeah.
Animals are keyed in too, and not always to temperature.
Precisely. You start to see these very specific early signs, signals that summer is coming. Like that distinct smell of skunk sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Or seeing fresh mink and otter tracks by the water. Canada geese honking overhead returning. Snowdrops pushing through the snow.
Classic signs.
Absolutely. Robins showing up. Male red-winged blackbirds staking out territory. Even blue jays, they have these gatherings, convocations, the book calls them. Maybe 24 more birds all bobbing and calling.
What are they doing?
It's thought to be for courting and pairing up, getting ready for the breeding season.
So nature's reading all these subtle cues on the ground in the air. But what about, are any cues celestial? Does the night sky play a part?
It's a fascinating question. Beyond just the day length, the stars themselves can signal the seasons. Polaris, the North Star, stays put, right?
Right.
But other constellations, they shift across the sky through the year. So in the northern hemisphere summer, the sky is dominated by the Milky Way, and specifically that summer triangle.
The summer triangle,
Vega, Deneb, and Altair. Bright stars in Lyra, Cygnus, and Aquila. It's a very clear sign of summer up there.
Do the birds know this? Like, are they actually reading the constellations?
That's the tricky part. Do they know it in the way we do? Probably not consciously. But their internal clocks are clearly synced to these long-term cycles. We see birds like ravens starting to fix up nests, even incubate eggs as early as February.
February. Wow, that's early.
It is. They instinctively know they need that whole long summer, and maybe more, to raise their young successfully. The timing has to be precise.
And that precision is remarkable, especially when you think how unpredictable early spring weather can be. How does a plant, say, avoid getting tricked by a warm week in January?
Right. Good question. Well, trees, like sugar maples, especially northern ones, they have this built-in safety mechanism. They need a certain amount of chilling.
Chilling, like cold weather.
Exactly. A sufficiently long period of cold exposure to break dormancy properly. If you took that northern sugar maple and planted it down in, say, Georgia,
It wouldn't work.
it wouldn't break bud. It just wouldn't get that sustained cold it needs. The timing mechanism isn't some central brain. It's right there in the tissues themselves.
Whoa, controlled up?
Yeah. And flowers like crocuses or bloodroot, they're responding to a whole mix of things: sunlight, temperature, their own internal clocks. A crocus might open above 41 Fahrenheit in the sun,
Okay.
but if you kept it dark, it might need it to be almost 70 degrees to open. It's complex.
Okay, so from these subtle signals of waking up, let's dive into maybe the more frantic side of summer, animal reproduction. And the book points to the chorus of wood frogs as a kind of starting gun.
Yeah, it's a great example. Wood frog breeding is incredibly intense and timed very specifically. It hinges on temporary pools, vernal pools, that will dry up later.
Like temporary pools. Seems risky.
Because adult wood frogs seem to really dislike fish, and their tadpoles swim right near the surface, making them super obvious, easy targets in permanent ponds with fish.
Ah, okay, so they seek out fishless water, even if it's just a tiny, like, washtub-sized puddle in the rocks.
Exactly. As long as it's fish-free, they'll use it. Safety first for the tadpoles.
And that really loud chorus they make, you hear that and you think, okay, males calling, trying to impress females, females choosing the best singer. But the book says it's more complicated.
It is, yeah. And it kind of pushes back against that simple idea of female choice, at least here.
Yeah.
In these big wood frog gatherings, the males vastly outnumbered the females, maybe 6-1.
6-1, wow.
So when a female arrives, she doesn't really get a chance to browse. She's basically grabbed, clasped almost immediately by a male, long before she could make a choice.
So it's a scramble.
It's an intense scramble. Males will even grab other males by mistake.
Really?
Yeah, and the grabbed male makes this specific release call to say, hey, wrong guy. So the strategy seems to be grab first, figure out if it's female later.
That's wild. So the big chorus isn't necessarily about individuals showing off.
It seems more about collective benefit. Yes, it costs energy, but the synchronous calling might overwhelm predators, stimulate everyone into breeding mode faster. It benefits the group's reproductive success, maybe more than any single male's display. It's less about choice, more about urgency.
That really reframes things. Collective frenzy over individual selection. Okay, from the chaos of the frog pond, let's shift to another complex summer society. Bold-faced hornets. That single queen, starting a whole colony. It's described as a marvel of engineering.
It really is remarkable. So this lone queen emerges from hibernation. First thing she does is shiver like crazy to get her body temperature way up over 95 Fahrenheit.
Just by shivering.
Yeah, generating heat. Then she finds wood, scrapes off fibers, chews them up with saliva to make paper pulp.
Wow.
And with that pulp, she starts building the first hexagonal cells, lays eggs, and then builds layers of paper insulation around them. She's creating a mini incubator.
And she keeps it warm.
By shivering again. She basically creates this localized tropical climate inside the nest to make sure her first batch of offspring grows super fast.
And those first ones are workers.
Exactly. Sterile female workers. Their whole existence is dedicated to building the nest, foraging, defending it, and helping raise the next generation, the new queens and males that will appear later in the summer.
And those nests get huge,
Yeah.
right? Like basketball sized. But being that big and full of larvae must make them a target.
Oh, absolutely. Big target. Ravens, for instance, if they can get to an undefended nest, they'll just rip it apart. Feast on the larvae and pupa.
So defense is crucial.
Totally crucial. And there's even strategy depending on the climate. Hornet colonies where summer is shorter, they seem to gamble less on just producing workers. They switch to making the reproductive ones, the drones and queens, earlier on.
Whereas longer summers.
Right. In places with longer summers, they can afford to invest more heavily in workers first, build a bigger workforce, maybe risk higher casualties, but potentially end up with a larger total output of new queens and males in the end. It's like a colony-level risk assessment.
Fascinating. Okay, from the communal hornets, let's look at a solitary builder, the mud dauber wasp, also creating amazing structures.
Yeah, the organ pipe mud dauber is a great example. Builds these long vertical tubes out of mud, cell by cell.
Like organ pipes, hence the name.
Exactly. And each cell is provisioned very specifically. She hunts spiders, paralyzes them with a sting so they're alive but immobile, and stuffs them in.
Live food storage.
Keeps it fresh for the larva. It hatches, eats the paralyzed spiders over days or weeks. And that vertical design means she can just keep adding cells on top. You can have larvae at different stages all in the same tube.
Efficient.
Very. And here's something interesting. The male organ pipe mud dauber sometimes sticks around.
Really? Male insects usually don't, right?
Very few do. But these guys will sometimes help guard the nest, chase away intruders or parasites. Quite unusual.
It just boggles the mind, the precision of it all. How does an insect, tiny brain, no instruction manual, know exactly how to build that specific nest, paralyze that specific spider, tell its own young from a parasite? How?
Yeah, it's one of the great questions in biology, isn't it? The assumption is it's largely encoded in their DNA. These complex behaviors are triggered by specific environmental cues.
So it's instinct.
Essentially, yes. Highly complex instinct. They just don't have the time in their short lives for trial and error learning. That newly emerged mud dauber knows where to find mud, knows the shape of the nest to build, knows what spider species to hunt. It's a prime example of what scientists call developmental plasticity.
We heard that term before with the plants.
Right. It means the environment can flip these developmental switches, activating pre-programmed genetic instructions that lead to very precise actions or even physical changes. It's not just nature or nurture, but this intricate dance between them.
Okay, let's switch gears to some of summer's more artful biners, perhaps, caterpillars. They're not just passively munching leaves. They're in this constant arms race with predators, especially birds.
Oh, absolutely. Some of their strategies are just ingenious. For instance, some caterpillars, after feeding on a leaf, will actually snip off the half-eaten part and drop it to the ground.
Why?
To hide the evidence. It obliterates their tracks, as the book says. Makes it harder for a bird scanning the leaves to spot where they've been feeding. Takes time and energy, but it boosts survival.
Clever. What else?
Others, like these tiny microlepidopteran moth caterpillars, they go even further. They'll roll up an entire leaf into a tube, hide inside it while they eat.
A little portable house.
Kind of. And then when they're ready to pupate, they chew through the leaf stalk, the petiole, and the whole rolled up leaf with them inside just falls to the ground.
Wow, like a little escape pod.
Exactly. An incredible way to avoid sharp-eyed birds.
So, hiding, removing evidence. But you mentioned earlier some can actually change their appearance, respond to the environment.
Yeah, that developmental plasticity again. Many caterpillars can change their physical form based on cues. The tobacco hornworm, for example, can end up green or black.
What decides that?
It seems linked to levels of a particular hormone, a juvenile hormone. In the related tomato hornworm, temperature can play a role too.
Why be black, though? Wouldn't that make them stand out more?
It does make them more visible, that's the trade-off.
Okay.
But being black means they absorb more solar energy.
Ah, so they warm up faster.
Right, which speeds up their development and gets them through that vulnerable caterpillar stage quicker. So it's this delicate balance. Grow faster, but risk being seen more easily. Or stay green and hidden, but grow slower.
Nature's always making these cost-benefit calculations.
Constantly. And it shows how these subtle environmental cues can trigger really major changes, making us rethink simple ideas about genes just dictating everything.
Okay, from these masters of disguise, the story takes a bit of a sobering turn, doesn't it? Talking about the fragility of some ecosystems, like the collapse of moth populations. The Prometheus moth is the example used.
Yeah, it's a really stark example. The Calasamia promethea moth. The source notes it was once so common, its cocoons were familiar to basically every country boy, just everywhere.
And now?
Now, in many areas, they've seen this catastrophic decline. The percentage of cocoons found with live, viable pupa inside plummeted from maybe 50% down to less than 1% in just over a decade.
Wow. Less than 1%. That's near extinction locally. What happened?
Investigations point strongly towards parasitoids. These are insects that lay their eggs in or on other insects, eventually killing the host.
Like the wasps we mentioned.
Exactly, like the gamblerous wasp. But a huge factor seems to be a fly, Compsognathus consonata, that was actually introduced intentionally.
Introduced? For what?
For biological control, probably targeting invasive species like the gypsy moth. But it turns out it's not very specific. It attacks a wide range of native moths and butterflies, including these large silk moths.
Oh, no.
Yeah. In some study areas, this one fly was found to be killing literally 100% of the silk moth caterpillars, sometimes within less than a week of them hatching. It highlights the potential dangers of introducing generalist biological control agents.
A really cautionary tale. Okay, let's shift landscapes dramatically now. Summer pushes life to the limits, especially in deserts. Extreme heat, lack of water.
Yeah.
The adaptations must be incredible.
Absolutely incredible. Life in the desert is all about managing heat and water. Lots of animals just avoid the worst of it by becoming nocturnal.
Active at night.
Right. Or they burrow deep underground where it's cooler and more humid. And then there are amazing water storage tricks. Think of the saguaro cactus.
The iconic desert cactus.
Yeah, it has this huge, shallow root system. After just one good rainstorm, it can suck up maybe 200 gallons of water.
200 gallons, wow.
And store it in its big, pleated trunk, sometimes enough to last a whole year.
Amazing. And humans living in deserts.
Indigenous peoples have developed incredible knowledge over millennia. Australian Aborigines, the Kalahari Bushmen, they know how to find water in sources you wouldn't expect. Water-holding frogs, hidden caches of ostrich eggs filled with water, specific plant tubers. Some even used to bury themselves in cool sand during the hottest part of the day just to conserve moisture.
Bury themselves.
Oh.
Desperate measures. But not everything tries to avoid the heat, right? The Apache cicada seems to almost embrace it.
It's a fascinating strategy. The Apache cicada is out and about singing loudly during the absolute hottest part of the desert day.
How about that?
Because that's when its main predators, birds, predatory wasps, have retreated from the heat. They can't take it. The cicada has the field to itself.
But how does the cicada itself survive that heat?
It has these glands, kind of analogous to sweat glands. In an emergency, like when it's singing really hard and generating heat, it can release water onto its surface for evaporative cooling.
Like sweating.
Kind of, yeah. But it needs a constant water supply for that. It gets it by tapping its proboscis deep into the roots of plants like palo verde bushes. Those roots can go down 60 feet to reach groundwater.
60 feet. Incredible. So it's got air conditioning and a deep well.
Basically. Okay.
And it's not just about coping with heat. Some creatures actually use heat as a weapon.
Right. These amazing thermal warrior strategies. You have Asian honeybees dealing with giant hornets, which are major predators.
How do bees fight a giant hornet?
They swarm it. A whole ball of bees surrounds the hornet, and they all start vibrating their flight muscles, generating heat. They raise the temperature inside that ball to about 118 degrees Fahrenheit. That temperature kills the hornet, but it's just below the bee's own upper limit. They cook their enemy.
That is brutal and brilliant.
Yeah.
Any other examples?
Bald-faced hornets, the ones we talked about earlier, they often hunt in the cool mornings. Their larger body size means they can warm up and fly when smaller insects are still too cold to move effectively. They use their size as a thermal advantage.
Taking advantage of the temperature difference.
Exactly. And then in the Sahara Desert, you have these ants called fast ants or silver ants. They forage out on the sand when the surface temperature can be 145 degrees Fahrenheit.
Unbelievable. How?
They run incredibly fast, and they make these little pit stops climbing up onto stalks of dead vegetation for a few seconds just to cool off slightly before dashing out again.
Why go out when it's that hot?
Same reason as the cicada, basically. Their main predators, certain lizards, can't handle that extreme heat. The ants have this narrow thermal window where they can forage, but their predators are forced into hiding. It's this precise thermal tightrope walk.
Life finding a way, always pushing the envelope. And what about plants in deserts? Some seem to defy death itself, like the resurrection fern.
Yeah, it's astonishing. How can something completely dry out and then come back? The resurrection fern in the Namib Desert, you see similar things even in mosses here in Vermont. They can look totally dead, dry, brittle.
Like finding dried moss on a rock.
Exactly. And then you add a little water, and within seconds sometimes, they plump up, turn vibrant green again. It's amazing.
Truly like resurrection.
But maybe the most unique desert plant mention is Welwitschia mirabilis. It's got this great African's name, Tweed larcanidid.
Meaning?
Two-leaved, cannot die.
Okay.
And it basically lives up to it. It only ever has two main leaves, these long strap-like things that just keep growing from the base for its entire life, which can be over 1,000 years.
1,000 years with just two leaves.
Yeah.
How does it manage water?
Super efficiently. It closes its leaf pores, the stomata, during the hot day to prevent water loss. Then at night, it opens them up to take in CO2 for photosynthesis. But here's the really cool part. It can also absorb water vapor directly from the air, especially from coastal fogs.
Absorbing fog.
Yeah, through its stomata. It even has ridges on its leaves that seem to channel the condensation down towards those pores. Just incredible adaptation.
Absolutely incredible. Okay, so from these extreme plant and animal adaptations, the deep dive brings us, maybe surprisingly, to us, to humans. And this idea of humans as a perpetual summer species, what does that mean?
It's a really provocative hypothesis put forward in the book. The idea starts with our lack of fur, our nakedness compared to other apes.
Right, why are we so hairless?
The suggestion is it's because we evolved under conditions where overheating was a bigger problem than getting cold, unlike our furry ancestors. We were essentially spawned by a perpetual summer world, likely in Africa.
So being naked helped us cool down.
Exactly. That, plus our ability to sweat profusely all over our bodies, and the way we can shunt blood to the skin surface to radiate heat away. These are all adaptations, the thinking goes, for endurance activity in the heat.
Like endurance hunting.
Precisely, allowing early humans to potentially run down faster prey, sprint specialists like cheetahs, over long distances in the midday sun because we could manage the heat load better.
Huh. Our lack of fur is a hunting advantage. I never thought of it that way. And this adaptation had bigger consequences, even for other human species.
Well, the timeline gets interesting. If you look at the evolution of lice, specifically the divergence between human head lice and body lice, which live in clothing, it suggests we started wearing clothing, or at least skins, maybe around 115,000 years ago.
Right.
Which is roughly around the time Homo sapiens started spreading out of Africa.
Yeah.
This ability to basically borrow the fur of other animals by wearing skins allowed us to colonize colder climates where our summer-adapted bodies weren't naturally suited.
Right. We could bring our fur with us.
Exactly, and the source then speculates a bit. Could our success, maybe our summer-adapted hunting techniques, or even just our tendency towards us versus them thinking, have played a role in the decline of other human species, like the Neanderthals?
Who were very cold adapted.
Superbly cold-adapted, likely furry. It's speculative, of course, but the pattern is there. Historically, when Homo sapiens arrive somewhere new, often other large animals and sometimes other hominins disappear.
A sobering thought about our history. And the book wraps up by thinking about summer's end and the whole cycle of life and death in nature.
Yes, it contrasts death in the wild with human practices. In nature, death isn't an endpoint, it's part of a cycle. A turkey killed by a coyote, a moose dying in winter. The book calls it a wild celebration of renewal.
Celebration. How so?
Because that carcass is immediately reintegrated. It becomes food for scavengers, sexton beetles burying bits, ravens tearing at it, chickadees gathering hair for their nests, porcupines gnawing on the bones later for minerals.
Nothing wasted.
Absolutely zero waste. All those concentrated nutrients in the animal's body get spread back out across the land, fueling new life. It's a stark contrast, the author argues, with human burial practices that often aim to seal the body away, effectively depriving the natural world of human nutrient.
A different perspective on ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And just as the biological summer ends, nature signals that transition too, right? Like leaves falling.
Yeah, and that leaf drop, the abscission, it's also precisely timed, mainly by photoperiod again, not just the first frost.
Day length again.
Day length is key. Just like flowering time is timed. Wind-pollinated trees tend to flower early, before leaves get in the way of the pollen traveling. Bee-pollinated ones flower later, when the bees are actually out and active in large numbers.
Makes sense. But then there are oddities, things happening out of season.
Right. The book mentions things like pear trees or dandelions, which are spring bloomers, suddenly flowering again in late September, or migratory birds singing their spring songs in the fall.
Why would they do that?
It raises a really interesting question. Think about it. The fall equinox and the spring equinox have the exact same day length, the same photoperiod.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So how does an organism know whether that 12-hour day signals spring is coming or winter is coming? It can't just be the day length itself.
So there must be something else.
There has to be an added mechanism. Maybe sensing the direction of change, our days getting longer or shorter. Or maybe sometimes these out-of-season events are triggered by stress, like an unseasonably warm spell confusing the plant's internal clock. It's another layer of complexity.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
From the cosmic smash-up that gave us seasons, through the frantic lives of frogs and wasps, the clever disguises of caterpillars, the incredible resilience of desert life, and even reflecting on our own human story as this perpetual summer species. Yeah. Looking back at this whole deep dive into summer world, what really stands out to you?
I think it's that relentless drive. If summer truly is this season of bounty, as Heinrich calls it, but driven entirely by this urgent need to reproduce, grow, survive, and if every single organism, from the tiniest beetle to the biggest tree, is constantly making these intricate cost-benefit calculations just for its own existence, well, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder about what?
About us. About the sustainability of our own human-made perpetual summer. Our heated homes, our global food system, everything that shields us from seasonal constraints. What are the long-term costs of the demands we place on the natural world, which operates on these much stricter, much more urgent seasonal budgets?
A very powerful question to think about. A thought to definitely mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for joining us.